Fuel is the official podcast of the 434th Air Refueling Wing. Join us for airman connections, leadership insights, mentorship, and happenings mixed with some fun and humor. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any person or business is ever intended.
Welcome to a special edition of Fuel Podcast. I'm Chief Master Sgt. Nathan Parks. And as always, in here in the room, well, I guess not always, Blocker was in here with me last time, but he's back from vacation. We thought he'd never come back, but Sergeant Josh the Dream Weaver is in here with me.
Well, I'll tell you what, you go to Florida and you can, it's a, hey, time to come back real quick.
Yeah.
So the kids like Florida, but I'm not about the humidity down there.
I love the heat. But anyways, special edition of the podcast. This is a paranormal edition. There should be some kind of spooky music, which maybe you can put that in there.
I think I could work something in.
So listen, we came up with this idea and for pure entertainment purposes, and it did not disappoint. There is some crazy crap. Like, you got to stay tuned. This thing takes some twists that none of us were expecting. Freaked us all out. Blocker's thinking about getting a job in a different building because he thinks this one's haunted now. Some crazy stuff. We're also going to try to do the video of it and post the video somewhere. So stay tuned, sit back, grab a beverage or something, and be entertained by this edition, a Halloween edition of Paranormal Activity at Grissom. Okay, with us today, very special guest, retiree, a guy that spent some time here at Grissom, Craig Petroswsky. Welcome to the Fuel Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Chief.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about you. So retired last year, is that correct?
Retired last year, September.
Yeah, and where'd you retire from?
Maintenance training.
Okay, so maintenance training, and then kind of give us a brief synopsis of your career here. We're all just spend time.
Okay, from here, I got here in 93 as a reservist. And when active duty shut down, I went to the 74th and became an ART in 96. And then...
Did you do training then too in the 74th?
In the 74th, I did keep track of the aircrew training.
Okay. So you were a SARM or a 1 Charlie?
It was 1 Charlie, Air Force Operations Resource Management Specialist. Was what it was.
I did that too at one point.
Did you?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got stuck with all the additional duty stuff because you were the guy that was there every day.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I'm very familiar. Pretty much.
Worked with Beth Konitska.
Okay.
You knew her.
Yep.
Chief Edgerly. Do you know
I didn't
Chief
know.
Edgerly?
No.
Okay. He actually hired me in as a reservist. In 99, 98, I transferred over to flight scheduling.
Okay.
And then about a year after that, I went into command post.
Okay.
And spent 16 years in command post.
All right.
I did just the standard controllers, sitting on the desk and answering phone calls and running checklists. And then I became a training specialist for the aircrew, teaching them that kind of stuff. And then in 2016, I transferred over to maintenance training and spent the rest of the years there.
So you from Indiana?
I'm from South Bend originally.
South Bend. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you Notre Dame fan?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Who isn't?
That's a good question. I guess
no one can see this because it's a podcast, but I'm raising my hand.
You're raising, you're not.
Boiler up.
Yeah. All right. So family, you had family around here? Or?
Got one of my brothers down here and his family. Most of my family still lives in South Bend.
Spouse, kids?
Oh yeah, my spouse.
Don't forget that. She'll get mad. I've done that before.
We'll start that. We'll start with spouse. We'll edit this to where you start with that.
Yeah. I got, my spouse is here, and we've got 5 kids between us.
Oh, nice.
Total.
Yeah. It's a whole basketball team. That's nice. So awesome. And what are your hobbies? Like, what do you like to do?
I paint.
Okay.
I do yard art is what I do out of 1/2-inch plywood. I create yard art.
Oh, nice.
Different characters, all kinds of things, especially for Halloween and Christmas.
Okay.
Um,
You're about to hit your busy season then.
I've hit it about 3 months ago.
Oh, okay.
I've been doing the yard art for close to 8 years now. And every year it just seems to get busier and busier. That was actually my part of my retirement plan. I was going to do that full time. But in the beginning of the year, January through March, there's not a whole lot of business. So, you got to supplement it.
That's right. So that's, I think Home Depot in the paint department, right?
Home Depot is
which
where I'm
would
working
probably
now.
be the discount on the paint and everything for the yard art. And it's,
Well, of course.
You find all those ones that are mixed wrong and you're like, I'll take that. Thank you.
Honestly, yes, I have.
Yeah. So that's, I tell my wife, I was like, whatever color you like, first look in the ones that they already have. And then go from there.
That is true. We do accidentally make mistakes quite often.
Yeah, that's right. It's,
more often than normal. And then, of course, my ghost hunting.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So ghost hunting, that's is that that's the term that you use?
Paranormal investigator.
Okay.
/ ghost hunter.
All right. So is there a license for paranormal investigator or is it
There's
there's not. Is there courses for that?
Ivy Tech had one at one time that was ran. IUK has a group that does it as well. So you can find courses around. I used to do, when I was in the beginning of this, I used to do ghost hunting 101 classes myself. I would go to, I would advertise that I'm going to do this at this time, at this place, and whoever wanted to show up could show up. Yeah. And usually I have a pretty good group, up to about 25 people.
So maybe that's something we could get you to do, like on one of the UTAs, like a Saturday night of the UTA, where
that would be awesome.
You show up out here, and maybe we do the ghost hunting around the old Grissom complex there on different. I've heard the old tennis court area over there can be quite frightening from some of the security forces guys, and then also the old tower.
I haven't heard about the tennis court, but I know about the tower.
Yeah.
When I had people, once I let it out, I used to be very close hold on my ghost hunting.
And why is that?
I did because of the negative portion of it. People a long time ago used to think ghost hunting as someone crazy, hearing voices or sitting in the dark.
Same thing I get about being command chief.
Well, yeah,
right? So crazy. yeah. So you hear voices and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm down the same path. Right. I don't tell people.
But it's amazing once you open up that you're open to this. Mm-hmm. You just have a flood of people coming in, telling you their stories.
Yeah.
You would never think that your coworker has a paranormal story.
Yeah.
Until you say, hey, I'm a paranormal investigator or I do ghost hunting.
Yeah.
I had a truck when I came out of the closet, so to speak, with this. I had a black truck, and on the back of it, I had my Miami County Paranormal Society.
Which most people know you by, because when I talked about this, doing this podcast, they were like, you should find the guy that had the paranormal truck that was out here.
Exactly.
I'm like, I did.
It's so funny because I've had so many people honk at me on 31 mm-hmm. or people waving at me at the because of my truck, because they recognize my truck. Yeah. And so it's just kind of funny. And every time I went through the gate, it seemed one of the security forces guys would stop me and, would chat with me for a minute about, last night so-and-so saw lights in the old tower.
Yeah. I know that guy because I talked to him. So we'll get into those in a second. So,
right.
there's, I think part of your reason why you did this was because you worked in command post, and so you spent a lot of time in the dark over there. And we'll talk about command post stories here in a minute. But a lot of times, Josh, Colts fan, grows up Colts fan, and it just he does it, family time, watching football, stuff like that. He draws into that.
Right.
What's the event that triggered you to this?
Well, my father was a funeral director.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, this plot thickens.
Yeah, he was a funeral director a few years before I was born. Mm-hmm. And we've lived in a funeral home for a short time. And I vaguely remember that. Mm-hmm. And I vaguely remember seeing shadows, but when we moved out of there, different events throughout my life were just kind of, seeing things out of the corner of your eye, and a lot of people don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. They just say, it was just I don't know, just...
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm stressed.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm stressed or something. But, if you pay attention, some of it is repeating shadows on you. My father passed away last year, and so did my brother. My brother passed away this year.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. But I just had a reading from a good friend of mine who is a medium, and I kept seeing shadows out of the corner of my eyes, or a light would flicker, that normally doesn't flicker. Mm-hmm. And it'd be kind of on a routine basis. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, is that my father trying to show his presence to me, that he's still around? Mm-hmm. And she said yes. She confirmed that yes, he is letting you know that he's around.
So this is... Again, we talked about this a little bit before we got started. Is I try to ask the questions on here that I think that people want to ask, and so we talked about having a good sense of humor, right? And I was listening to a podcast this morning on paranormal, and that's what the guy said is you got to have a great sense of humor to do this, and you added you also have to have patience,
a lot of patience.
But what is how would you explain that to someone that's like, yeah, I get it, all those things you're saying you believe to be true, but how do I know you're not just a guy with a lot of, gadgets that has a really good imagination?
Right. I always think, and I'm a somewhat of a skeptic at heart as well. Mm-hmm. When I go into a place to actually do an investigation, I go in with looking at it like, okay, the water turned on. So, I'm looking for, why did it turn on? Was there too much pressure in the pipes and did it turn on? When I think about the paranormal in most people, is you never believe in something. And this goes with, I think, most anything. You don't believe it until you see it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what my skepticism is. I mean, I hear stories, I see pictures on the internet just like everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And I take it with a grain of salt. I look at it, could it be a reflection? Yes, it could. If you can, but if you rule everything else out that it could have been, then you're left with something that you can't explain.
Yeah. So isn't that really just life too? Yeah. Like it's, you, me, and Josh sitting in this room is we're all going to have the same experience sitting in this room. But then if they grab us when we walk out of here and they say, each of you describe your experience in that room, we're probably going to have three separate stories, right?
That is very true.
And so then, we can explain away some of it, but the rest of it is just what it, it's just what we believe then to be facts, mm-hmm. right? And you're saying that is, that's where you've taken this. You're like, hey, I'm a skeptic. I understand that people are going to be skeptic, and I'm right there with you. So if I can explain it away, guess what? If someone calls you out and they say, hey, this light keeps flickering, and you walk over and you adjust the bulb and it comes on bright, I mean, or you just walk out and be like, hey, you may want to just tighten your bulb.
Yeah. Usually when something like that happens and we do adjustments with something like that, usually I just tell them to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Does it do it again? Then we'll look farther into it. But until then,
Yeah. So I was listening to this podcast this morning and prepping for this, and this guy talked about some events where he was in a house. He was actually in the poltergeist house, and a domino dropped from the ceiling, and the dominoes were all in the other room.
That's odd.
You know, and there was him and one other person talking, and the guy that he was talking to was a skeptic, and it's like, I don't believe anything in this house is whatever. And so this domino drops from the ceiling, and this guy's like, you set me up, you did it, you know, and freaks out and leaves, right? And so, do you have any experiences like that? Anything where it's like that hair raising, like this cannot be explained away?
Okay. If you'd like to talk on base, I've got
Sure, that'd even better. Okay. Yeah, bring it.
Even better.
Here we go.
This is what we're here for.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I've got really two stories that are semi-personal. One story is my own. I was in command post. Mm-hmm. It's about 7:00 in the evening. Mm-hmm. One of our controllers had passed away, or had not passed away yet, I should say. She had not passed away, but she was on her deathbed. And we had a dot matrix printer there that she hated. She did not like it. Anytime she had to reload the paper or make adjustments to, you know, the font or whatever, she hated it. And so I was sitting there, and suddenly the dot matrix printer just started kind of going crazy. It started to print a couple things and, you know, go forward, go backwards. It made some really strange things, which it doesn't do. And later on, I found out at the time that happened, she had just passed. Mm. So I'm wondering if she came back to let me know that she had passed by messing with the printer.
So do you believe that what triggers that the spirit or someone coming back, as you just referred to it as, what triggers that? Are there events that trigger that? Does there have to be a, you know, because when I think about it, it's like, hey, it's a murder or it's a, you know, something that haunts, right? It's a haunting, but it's not always a haunting. You know, you talked about your dad, and I don't think your dad's trying to haunt you, right? Or your brother.
No,
like,
I don't think so.
What triggers the spirit to come back?
I think just the need to let people know that they're around. You know, the spirit or the energy. I've watched videos of people passing away, and you see a form go out of their body. You know, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I didn't take the video. Mm-hmm. And that's where my skepticism comes in. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. If that's true, then it's the spirit leaving the body. It's a form of energy. And if a person is attached to a place, you know, this person had worked there for years and years and years, and she was still young when she passed. And I was good friends with her, and I think sometimes they just want to let you know that they're here or they're passing, or, you know, that they're thinking of you.
You think it ever is, you know, they're completing that one more task that, you know, it's like, hey, I have this, you know, a lot of times I'm getting ready to leave the house and I'm like, I got this one more thing I want to do right before I leave. Or like today, I'm trying to leave early, you know, to go spend time with my family. My kids are out of school. And it's like, okay, once I get these things done, and if I don't get those things done, then man, it weighs on me to where I'd be better off just to come back and get those things done. And then I can go in peace and spend, you know, do you think sometimes that's it? Is they're just trying to find some peace? Or?
Absolutely. I think people leave this earth still having things to do in their mind. And so they want to, you know, complete them, like you said, before they move on.
Okay. Now, you talked about another command post story when we talked on the phone.
When we were in the Altanova in Building 600.
Okay.
If anyone knows Building 600, where command post sits, there's two entrance doors. Those are always locked with the combination locks. At the time, we were sharing the hallway with OSI. OSI was in the far down.
Which are spooky dudes anyways.
They're spooky, yes. OSI, yeah, you know them. They're kind of like the Men in Black.
That's right. That's right.
But anyways, they normally go home about, you know, 6 o'clock, and the controller, our their shifts were 5:45 to 6:15. Anyways, it was 2:00 in the morning. And she was sitting there just, doing her stuff. And she looked up at the monitor and, there's cameras all down the monitor. I'm sure you've seen it. Mm-hmm. And she saw a man standing in the hallway, in the locked hallway. Mm-hmm. Freaked her out. There's not supposed to be anybody there. She assumed it was OSI. So when she turned away, and when she turned back, this person was gone. She thought, well, maybe it was one of the OSI guys coming back, do some work. So she picked up the phone, called OSI, because she wasn't going to go out the locked door to go down the hallway. She called
not unarmed, anyways.
No. Of course, what could you do?
Yeah.
In this case, what could you do?
I don't know. That's why you're here. I want to know. So good.
Anyway, she called there. There's no answer. And so she called security forces to have them do a welfare check on her. And they came in, they swept the whole building, couldn't find a soul. Literally.
But yeah, nice play. Yeah. So they have it on camera.
They don't have it on camera. It didn't show up on camera, but she saw it.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah.
She saw.
I know that I saw something.
Yes.
All right. What's the other Grissom experience? You had a couple Grissom experiences here, right?
Those were really my with the dot matrix printer and hers was my personal ones.
What's your favorite one that you've done outside of here? What's your favorite? Here? Yeah. The most you feel like, hey, I was in touch with whatever you want to call it, the spirit world, the paranormal, however, this was unexplainable. I eliminated all other options. This was it.
Well, I've been scratched before.
Okay.
That was kind of interesting.
Bring it. I want to hear it.
We've done a few buildings in Peru, one being the Elks Club down there on Broadway, and then also the circus building on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And there was this trunk back in the museum area, back in the back, that people always said they felt kind of weird about. Something just wasn't right, some energy or something. So I went back there and I was doing my an EVP session, which is electronic voice phenomena. Mm-hmm. And nothing seemed to be going on. It was pretty quiet. So I started to pack up my stuff. And as usual, as I'm walking away, I crack a joke. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what the joke was, but whoever was there didn't like it because I started feeling a burning sensation on my neck. And I reached back and, man, that kind of hurt. So when we got out to our safe area where everyone hangs out, I had a couple people look at my neck and I had 3 scratches on my neck.
So do you think, were you able to research that and figure out, hey, this is possibly the person that,
Never found a reason for it.
Yeah. Just a bad joke, bad dad joke that the spirit world did not like.
Yeah. Somebody didn't like me joking back there.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorites.
So you talked about EVP. What is that?
Electronic voice phenomena. That was started back in, I believe it was it was actually started at the White House. Mm-hmm. Because they used to bug. It was the Russians that used to bug the offices there. Mm-hmm. And when they were listening back to the recordings, they caught voices on these recordings that there were no people or in the office at the time, or they were talking over the people who were in office at the time. That's where the EVP actually started.
Okay.
But there's different levels of EVP for the paranormal community. We have there's where you can actually hear the voice. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt that means that person or that entity said, "Get out."
Have you had any of those?
My son has had. a couple.
So this is like your son's a paranormal investigator also?
Yeah, he's kind of followed in my footsteps. He runs Ghoulie TV on YouTube. So if you look up Ghoulie TV on YouTube, you'll find it.
Okay.
So yeah, we have a couple of them that is audible. And then there's ones that you have to kind of enhance. You got to listen to it really good and to kind of figure out what they're doing. And then there's another where you have to do kind of forensic. Yeah. Audit of it to pull it out.
Yeah.
So there's different levels.
Okay. And what do you think the EVP, like what? So spirits, ghosts, whatever you want to call them, you believe they can be audible.
Yes.
But then we talked about earlier, I said, don't go out there, or I wouldn't go out there without being armed. So they can be audible, but they can't be physical. Like, I guess they're already dead. Or
well, based on my scratch, I think they can be physical.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier about seeing people in the tower out here at Grissom.
That's what security forces have told me.
Yeah. So have you investigated that at all?
I have not. I'd love to.
Yeah.
I understand they're tearing that down, though.
They've talked about it. Have you been by it lately?
I've been. They've got it blocked off.
There's some weirdness that goes on too. If you just go by and look at that building, you look at it and you're like, how did that happen? Like some stuff going on with the siding and stuff like that. There's some weirdness that just by looking at the building. But my understanding from one of the security forces guys was, so 1964 was a tragic year around Grissom. Of course you had the B-58, which I want to talk about later, crash that was here. But there was also, I think 64 was the year that the airman that was killed by the ejection seat over, I believe, in Dock 4. Was it
200 or Dock 4? I thought that was 2.
I don't know exactly, but I know that there's still some remnants of kind of what caused a little bit of a fire there, and so some burn singe marks and stuff like that. And then my understanding is there's also a individual that killed himself in the tower, in the old tower. And so with those things, you think that generates that?
I think so. I think any tragedy would enhance the haunting or the spirits. If I suddenly died unexpectedly, I don't think my spirit would believe that I'm dead, that I would be in that realm of unaccepted. I'm not accepting my death, so I'm here. And the person with the ejection seat, that from my understanding of that event, he was working in the cockpit and he accidentally hit.
Yeah, that's my understanding too.
Yeah, and then that's happened a few times, not necessarily here, but other bases I know.
Right.
And so that would surprise me. My spirit would probably jump out of my body as well, at that point. So I think any tragedy would cause a haunting.
So the stories that I've heard of the old tower is, at night, the report of seeing someone up there, monitoring the airfield with lights, and also in that room being lit up there with seeing the one person up there in the room, even to the point where I believe we've had 911 calls and stuff like that of seeing those individuals up there.
Yeah, those are the stories I've heard as well.
So how would you investigate that?
Well, I would first talk to the people who've seen it to see if there's any specific time of night it is. Kind of helps narrow it down. I would put cameras up there. I've got a DVR system with 4 cameras that I could station up there and record to see if there's any abnormalities. Abnormalities, if that's a word.
Abnormalities?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I knew there was a word
That's
there
close
somewhere.
enough. Yeah, we're going to give you that one. Yeah. I mispronounced the false alarm. Don't feel bad.
Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah,
Anyways,
that's right. That's right.
Anyways, I'd put the cameras up there to see if there's anything that I can capture on camera. I would, since there shouldn't be any power up there, I would think. I would think right now they would have turned off all the power. Mm-hmm. So I would use my my EMF, the K2 meter is one thing, and then this is a Mel meter, which does kind of the same thing as this, except for it's a little bit different frequencies. That will tell if there's any electromagnetic fields around, to see if there's any hot spots where maybe electricity's coming in. And I'd obviously take pictures, and I'd take my voice recorder up there and ask a few questions. First of all, is there anybody here that'd like to talk to me? And then,
does anybody answer that?
Not specifically that question, but in some of my sessions,
like that would be like if they wanted to, they would already contact you, right?
It's just kind of an opening question. Mm-hmm. It's a de-arming question. Mm-hmm. And let them know that I always let them know, I'm not here to harm you or do anything to you. Right. I just want to communicate with you. Okay. I want you to let me know that you're here, and don't do me any harm, please, and that kind of stuff. And then I just ask general questions, yes and no questions.
And how are those usually answered?
Well, there's a couple different ways. If it's a voice recorder, it's one that there's a couple different voice recorders. I don't have the most current one that they have where you can actually listen to responses in real time. If you use a regular voice recorder, you just go back and you put your headphones on, you listen to it afterwards. There's also flashlight work that I do. And that's these flashlights that you can get from the BX or... Yeah. I think I got these. Yeah, I think I got these at the BX and at one of the bases. You can get at Walmart.
So he's holding up just a mini mag, like a real small mag light that would fit in your pocket. It's probably 5 inches long or so, and you just screw on the on off is just you screw the end of it on and off.
The tip of it, yeah. And basically with these, when you set them up, you kind of twist them to where they're either on or off, just barely. So if I turn them to where it's just off, and usually if I can get them to stand up, usually I get them to stand up, and I usually use two. I use a black one for a no flashlight and a blue one for yes flashlight. And then I start asking questions, and I explain to them as I'm setting it up, this is a black flashlight. I'm going to ask you questions. If the answer is no, light this up for me. And the way you light it up, the way I feel like they light them up is their energy will make that connection if they touch it. That's why it's so lightly turned off.
Yeah.
So if they touch it, it'll go on. If they move away from it, it'll turn off. Okay. I've had a lot of success with these. Okay.
You can leave that on there because we may use it here in a minute. So I'd say set them both up because I want to go down a path with some events that took place here. So you go in, you ask these yes, no questions, and hopefully, what do you want to find out through that? Like, have you ever went out there and you're like, hey, this person's here, like what you talked about with the command post, like, hey, is there something here that you left undone? Is there something we can do so that you don't feel like do you feel like the spirit is trapped there until they get those things done, or they convince someone to get those things done?
In that case, I ask them to speak in the recorder for me, and so I can hear, if there's anything like that. Mm-hmm. Yes, no questions is a little bit harder to get to a specific point with, or something like that with. Some hauntings are, well, I guess I should say the different types of hauntings. Mm-hmm. There's different levels of hauntings. There's a residual haunting, which is just kind of a instant replay of what happened.
Okay.
And there's an intelligent haunting where they can actually respond to you.
Okay.
They're not quite sure. I don't know if they know that they're dead or they're just kind of in between. But they can interact with you in some form. And that usually takes, I would think, a lot of energy to do. And that's kind of what we're hoping for here is an intelligent haunting. Out in Okefenokee, there's, I believe, an intelligent haunting out there.
I don't know what Okefenokee is. You could have just made that up.
You should have done a little more research before we started this.
What's that? Go, Josh the
Just
Dreamweaver.
lying. I don't have all the research. I just know Doug told me about it. Something in Peru.
Yes.
I read something very small about it, but I'm sure you have a lot more information.
Yeah, go ahead. Shoot me the Okefenokee. Is that how you pronounce it?
Okefenokee. Yeah. It's out in Mississinawa off of 124 east of Peru. It's a little dirt road. You go down. It's about a mile and a half-ish, and it ends in a circle. Mm-hmm. A lot of people... Sorry, black flashlight just flashed.
So we talking about Okefenokee and the black light flashlight. You want to move your mic stand, Josh? Because I don't want you to...
I got to be able to see the lights.
It could be the vibrations of us moving.
I'm not touching either.
I don't know.
Stay back. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my hands off the table.
So keep talking about Okefenokee.
Sure. Okay, Okefenokee.
This is where we're going down a good path there.
There's a couple.
Maybe.
Okefenokee is used for horseback riding by people out there. But as far as the paranormal, there's a couple different stories. There were in the center of the driveway there where it ends, there was 18 skeletons that were found there, and they believe it was from the War of 1812.
Okay.
There was a massacre down there. And then another story is of a little girl named Stephanie who was lured down there and murdered. And I think I've had some interaction with Stephanie. And the reason why I say that is because one of the people I worked for here wanted to go down, knew about what I do. So she wanted to go down and investigate with me, check it out.
Someone from the base here?
Somebody from the base, yeah.
Okay.
One of my commanders. Anyways.
All right.
No name drops.
You can name drop all you want. I have no allegiance to anyone here.
No, she's retired.
Okay.
But anyways.
And narrow sit down also. That's if you're playing at home, playing along at home.
Anyways, I took her down there and we went down by the water. And I set up the flashlights and I turned on my K2 meter here. Mm-hmm. And what happens is when a spirit touches the K2 meter, it changes the lights. They go up. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of looking for Stephanie, hoping she would communicate with me. And I had that held kind of down at my waist level,
right?
Thinking this is a little girl, so she should be somewhere down there. And she started answering my questions. She started to move the lights for me. And of course, my captain kind of freaked out a little bit. And when we spent about maybe 10 minutes down there talking to her, and I said, well, okay, Stephanie, we're going to go up the trail here a little bit. Feel free to follow. Keep us company. And the lights stayed on. Yeah,
first off, I think that's a bad idea. Like, if I'm like, feel free to stay here and never follow me again.
Well, you do that.
Right?
We do that at the
end. And then I usually take off sprinting faster than a small child. So that's as fast as I would want to go.
That's usually what we do at the end.
Oh, okay. All right. That's where I would start. I'll just tell you right now. That's where I start.
So some people say prayers going in beforehand and prayers going out.
Yeah. I mean, the whole time. Yeah. That's me and
some
prayer.
People pray the whole time.
That's right.
But we started up the trail, and about maybe 50 feet into the trail, the lights just stopped. Mm-hmm. There was no lights. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Out there in Mississinawa, in that area, there are no power lines or no electrical whatsoever, so that should not be going off. And so I backed up a little bit just to see, what would happen. And the lights came back on. I went forward. It stopped. So I think that she was murdered somewhere close to that
area.
Center.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I knew. So the little girl is the thing that I read about. I did not read about the skeletons.
Yeah. So I totally lost track of where we were because of that story.
I was in it.
So yeah, I was right there with it. So I want to go down this path and tell you a few stories that when I started looking at this, we thought of this back in early September of, hey, we want to know. And actually when I first started this podcast, my cousin Bobby, she was like, hey, do one on any kind of do you have any airplanes that are haunted? Do you have any, sort of hangars or any of that stuff? And do a podcast on that. And by the way, her husband, Jason, was like, the only question he wanted me to ask you is Bobby possessed? And I said, I don't know if that's really that's his wife. Yeah. It's his wife. But so anyways, it's I don't know that you can tell that. And I think the answer is yes. But anyways, so we started asking those questions, and we would go around and we'd ask. And I was actually over by Dean Baldwin today and asking around on some of the members over there. Hey, had anything happen and stuff? And there was one story that continued to kind of come around, and there were several people that had experienced it. And we try to get those people to come on here, and because they're still participating members here, they were like, hey, I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to go down that path. I don't know if people think I'm crazy. I don't. So, but I can confirm with several people that they've told these stories for years. And so it has to do with the flight line and being out on the flight line. And there's a certain area where they set. And one of the stories is there was two security forces guys that were out there, and it was the middle of the night. And they were both facing opposite directions. So their cars were parked facing opposite directions, and they had their driver's side windows together, and they were talking, but they were different directions. And just as you kind of described earlier, as they're talking, is they're, looking at each other, kind of looking off. I doubt they were staring deeply at each other in the middle of the night out there, but knowing both those individuals. But they see, one of them sees a figure walking into the headlights. And so, obviously out on the flight line, you're like, who's out here? So whips head over. And as he does, the figure darts back out. Can't make it out. It's at the end of the headlights. Kind of described it as a more of a blob,
Black blob.
Blob style. Yeah. Like a dark figure, maybe heavily coated or something. Right. So he says he kind of just dismisses it. And he's like, you know what? Probably my eyes are playing tricks on me here. Right. So goes back to talking, and a few minutes later, same thing. So he kind of looks over and nothing again. So now he's like, man, am I really seeing this? Like, do I need to investigate this? So he sets back one more time, and he says, he's talking and everything. And all of a sudden he sees the look, and he looks over and he says, that time the guy that he's sitting there talking to goes, what are you seeing? And he's like, what do you mean? He goes, what are you seeing? I saw you whip your head. What are you seeing over there? And he said, I'm seeing a figure walk into, my peripherals. And as soon as I look over there, that figure darts out of my peripherals and I can't see him. And he's like, I'm seeing the same thing. So they're facing opposite directions, but at different times, they're seeing this figure that's coming into their light and then back out. And so they're like, okay, what do we do here? And they look around, they can't seem to find anything. They don't. And so then another time, we've got airplanes up here that have evacuated due to hurricanes and stuff down south. And so there's a security forces member that's out there, and same thing, sitting there and sees this black blob running towards one of the airplanes. Drives up, nothing. goes back to the spot, sits there for a little while longer, sees it running to another airplane, drives up, nothing. Comes back, happens like 3 or 4 times. And so guy comes in and he's just like, listen, I got to get off the flight line. Like, I see that thing again, I'm going to fire a shot at it because I don't know what it is, but it's there. I would 100% certainty it's there. These 2 guys hadn't told their story to anyone else. And so they're like, listen, we believe you because we've seen it. So I started doing some research on it and I was like, I'm a skeptic. Right. And I'm like, I don't know, these guys, like, what possibly could it be? And I keep coming back to this December 8th of 1964 and this plane crash that took place. So this plane crash that happened out here, is the B-58, the Hustler, that they were doing an exercise like one that we just did. They were doing like a nori. So they were checking out their response capabilities and what they could do. But what they did differently then than what anyone does now is they actually had live nukes loaded on their airplanes. So this B-58 had 5 nuclear weapons loaded on the airplane. So they do a quick response, a lot like what we do right now. Pilots go running out to their airplanes. The crew goes running out. So this particular B-52 or B-58 has 3 crew members on it. One of which is a guy, the call sign was Rocky. So Rocky goes running out, gets into the airplane. They go to launch. The airplane skids off the runway, catches fire, and Rocky's ejection pod gets out, but parachute never opens. And he ends up perishing right out here on our runway. They don't know what to do with the airplane because the nuclear weapons didn't actually explode. They just burned. So they just buried it all.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. So I started looking at this and so I started looking at photos from the crash site and from the investigation. And I've showed, I think I showed you that the other day, but I showed the members that saw this blob. And there's one person that's never identified, but is in several photos. And everyone else is wearing like a jacket. And they're out there at the scene investigating. And there's one person that's in a full-blown snowsuit, hood up. It's dark, it's black. And they're never looking at the actual wreckage, but they're always standing there. So I'm like, is this, when I present this to you, who's a paranormal guy, is this the type of situation? You've got Rocky who's out there who's still maybe trapped in this, trying to respond to airplanes in that rapid response. The last photo we have of him is him sprinting to an airplane.
That sounds like it would be a good reason to have a haunting, for sure.
And we've got the tower that the lights come on. We got, all in the same year, really here.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a haunting to me. Sounds like a residual haunting, where he's just doing the same thing over and over again. It's interesting about the pictures. I'd love to see those if at all possible. But
yeah, they're public release. The Indy Star did a special on it, or did an article on it. I don't know, 2017 maybe 2018, somewhere in there, and they released about 58 photos, and so I found the same image in several photos. But it's never, it's got the caption, "This is so-and-so investigating the scene." And we'll talk about one person in there, but it doesn't talk about the separate image that's in the photo.
Very interesting. Yeah, I knew about the aircraft and what had happened there. And that's definitely could cause him to continue to be here. Just doing that residual thing, going on and on and on, never ending.
So how do we put Rocky at ease?
I don't think a residual haunting like that is one that you would put at ease. It could be that it's not his actual spirit per se. It could be an imprint like on a picture or on film where it just runs over and over again. His spirit could be at rest for all we know. And this could just be an imprint on the area itself of his last actions.
So it could be that image that they see darting off could just be his imprint of him darting to the airplane.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, whether you believe in this or not, I believe it's a very interesting subject. And I know that there's a lot of people that you may put their mind at rest or mind at ease. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking time and coming out here and, bringing your stuff out here. And I will tell you, I think there would be some interest to maybe doing this on a Saturday night of a UTA. We're approaching December, which is when things happened out here. And so maybe that's something that we look at as a tour with you, kind of around the areas, not on base, but out in the area right out there and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, there's definitely some Peru and the surrounding area have some pretty interesting haunts as far as, and I think it's pretty active. I've investigated at least a half a dozen homes on Eagles Point here, which used to be old base housing. And in each case, I have found something, whether it be a voice from beyond or some EMFs that unexplained why it would be there. There's always seems to be something in there. So I think this base being the way it's been over the years, so active and stuff, I think there's actual activity here. Again, I don't know if it's actual hauntings or if it's just a residual thing, an imprint. But it just seems like this area has a lot of haunts, a lot of different places that has paranormal interest.
Anything in Eagles Point involving children or anything that we had a call here a while back of some children, sound like children playing, and then some cries for help, and we never could find anything. We actually responded out, our security forces responded out, and they actually found some tracks leading out of the creek, but no tracks leading in. Anything that you can recall of that?
I do not recall anything involving children or ghost children. I've been to several houses that have children in them and they get freaked out because of voices or things moving, the standard haunts, but not of children's voices or anything like that.
Okay. Anything else you want to ask, Josh?
I don't think I have anything to ask, but if you talk about interest in people doing this, there might be. I'm not one of them.
I like to do things in the daylight.
Right where the lights are on.
Yes.
Being a ghost hunter is kind of like watching corn grow sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not like what you see on TV. You see people, freaking out, running, or they.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it would be. Like if Josh and I went like that, I'm pretty sure that's what we would see.
just like the podcast here, you're going to cut and paste some of the stuff in to kind of condense it. And that's what they do on TV to make it interesting. You could be sitting there for 4 hours and only one thing happen.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot like hunting.
Paranormal, yeah. It's kind of like hunting, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's ghost hunting.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Not ghost catching.
So no camo involved.
It's not like it is on TV. People get scratched. I get scratched. I've had my coat pulled out at Tillett's.
Yeah. The one I was listening to this morning, they were sitting they went into a house, the Poltergeist house, and they played Monopoly at the table. And a lady jumped up and kicked her chair back. And she's like, I just felt a child pulling my leg, like pulling my pant leg. And she was so upset that she says it. And everybody's like, looking under the table. And while they're looking, she was gone. Like she's got
Sure,
her
I'm
card
out.
left. She's like, I'm out. That's all I needed. I'm now a believer. If I was a skeptic before, I'm now a believer.
I have heard of people doing that, but in general, it's not like that. Usually, if you're actually doing an investigation, you're going into a home or a business or a place where you've been asked to come. They've experienced things. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you experience the same things. Sometimes you don't. But it's, people think of it as scary, and it's not necessarily scary. The things that are the scariest things are what you imagine. Mm-hmm. Just like a Stephen King novel or, a book. You're reading the book, you're imagining it. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens a lot of times. People will sit there in the dark and there's nothing going on, so their imagination takes over.
Yeah.
And so they start freaking out.
Yeah. There's a deprivation tank that I'm going to go try, and it's you're weightless. The body temperature, the air and the water is the same temperature, but there's no sound and no light. And I had a buddy that went and did it, and the first time he was all right. The second time, he said he started hallucinating and hearing voices and hearing that someone calling his name, and then he was like, am I trapped in here and they're trying to get me out? And really started going down a path and freaking out over the whole thing.
I wanted to try one of those.
So they have them here in town. So
I'll have to check them out because I'd like to try one.
Just let me know when you're going, because I don't want to be anywhere near it when you're there. I feel like you stirred up a few things. Like there's a couple things. I love having you out here, but I promise I'm probably not going to meet you at dark. Like that's the way this is going to go.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, I know. If you offered something, I'd probably go just because I don't know. I like it. I'm interested. I think it's. To me, it's fun, and no matter where you're at on the spectrum of how much you believe to hey, this is just a bunch of dudes with great imagination to 100% believe in it. Right. I think there's entertainment in it for all of us.
Oh, right? Absolutely. It's all who you ghost hunt with.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're serious about it and you go out with some serious people. It can be fun, but if you go out with people who have a good sense of humor, like you said, it can make it fun. You can still have experiences. Yeah. And sometimes
you ever just scare the crap out of people, like just for fun, like you get out there and just scare
that is one thing when I do a ghost hunt with somebody. I do take it seriously.
Yeah. Can you bring me along? I'll scare them. That's all right.
And that's why you're not allowed to go.
Yeah, that's why I'm not here.
We stayed the night at Waverly Sanitarium down in Kentucky.
On purpose?
On purpose. Yes.
All right.
I don't know if you ever heard of Waverly, but anyways, it was a TB hospital back in 1926. Anyways, one thing that they said is we'll never have somebody come or jump out in front of you. One of our people scare you on purpose.
I feel like they're missing an opportunity at that point.
Yeah. Well, it was during the Halloween season. So,
yes.
It wouldn't have surprised me, but when I'm trying to do a serious investigation or I'm trying to teach people how to do the investigation, maybe it's my military background, but I don't like to mess around.
I could see that. I could see that. And I would never do it when someone was taking it serious or try to offend someone at that point, or anything like that. But I do enjoy scaring people, which is one of my favorite pastimes.
I do a haunted house in my garage for Halloween.
All right.
We're getting ready to set it up for Halloween for trick-or-treating. And yes, that is a great time to scare people.
Yeah, I would think that you would know better than anyone how to scare people at that point. Josh, what's the scariest moment you've been in? Like any paranormal activity for you?
Besides this?
Yeah. I kind of feel like we should have done this podcast with the lights out, with the two flashlights.
Just flashlights.
Just the two flashlights. The two flashlights halfway on.
Man, did someone tell you about mine and now you're like, hey, make sure you share it on the podcast?
I want to hear it, Josh. Give it to me.
All right. I think it was 17 years old. There's this place in the town that I actually live in, Daleville, called the Witches Circle. And apparently, from reading about it.
Great name, by the way.
It was a great name. Very scary to start.
Up with a name. That's the one I want right there.
So apparently, like people used to, or they still do, I'm not positive on, practice witchcraft back there. It's a cemetery that's back in the woods. Like you have to walk through the woods to get to it. And so, me and a few friends, we decided we were going to go back there. And some of these people were from out of town. So on the way there, the road there is called Blood Road, which there's a legend that basically this kid fell out of the truck.
I'm sure where you're hanging out right now.
I know.
Witch's Circle with Blood Road.
All right. I was 17. But kid fell out of the truck, and I guess there was rope in the back, and it got around his foot, so his dad didn't realize it, and he's dragging him on the road because he didn't know he fell out of the truck. So there's what I would imagine is paint on the road, red paint. Supposedly every time they pave it, that comes to the top of the road, or someone walks outside and puts paint back on the ground, one of the two. So you pass that. Well, we stopped there because these people wanted to, and we go back to the Witch's Circle. And for some reason, I'd been there before. For some reason, I was like, I've got a weird feeling right now. Like, I just don't want to be here. And so, hey guys, because I drove, hey, wrap it up. We're leaving. I don't want to be here anymore. And we're starting to walk out. We walk down this trail to get out of the woods. About the time we're to our car, I hear this super high-pitched, screech from the right side of the woods. My heart just sinks.
How far did you run?
Well, not very far. My car was right there, but I got there quick. I got there real quick.
It's fast. How fast did you run?
Very fast.
It did start.
It did start. It did start. So, you get in the car and we leave, and my heart's just beating so fast. And somehow I let these people talk me into going back there that night. And as we drive past, we get to that. We never actually went to the Witch's Circle. Didn't make it that far. As we're going past that Blood Road, it says, "Go home" on the road. Like right in front of where the red paint was, now it says "Go home." So I attempted to listen, and I went home. Apparently, I was very susceptible to peer pressure because we went back out there about an hour later. And as we pull up this time, now it says, "We said go home." And that's the last I've ever been there. And I'll say about a year ago, I'm driving down the road and I realize I live a mile from this place now.
Oh, man.
I had no idea where it was because we would always take a different way to it. So.
Well, part of the podcast is a surprise is he's going to take you out to Witch's Circle tonight at midnight.
That will not happen. I've driven
I want
past
to conquer
that road.
this with you, all right? Not with you. I don't want to be there, but I want you to conquer this.
I've driven past that road a few times, and I've thought about what if I just drive down that road and see if that's still on the road?
Now, that was at nighttime, right?
It was at nighttime.
Have you
2, 3 in the morning.
Out there during
Absolutely not. I have never been back down that road anywhere, even though I'm a mile from it. Nope. That's a hard pass for me now.
I want to go. I want to go now.
And I'll tell you the worst part was that high pitched noise that I heard.
Can you hear it right now?
I cannot hear it right now.
Let's turn on the
my
lights.
ears are ringing, but that's not the same noise. Yeah. But it was right around 4th of July. And so when people shoot bottle rockets, it makes that same noise. Yeah. And so that whole 4th of July weekend, whatever, every time I heard it, I would just no, not again.
I'm going to freak you out, but my K2 just went off.
See, now
there we go.
Just went up to yellow.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Glad I could add. Yeah. Well, this was, let's see, how old am I now? So this was 15 years ago. Yeah. So haven't been back
time
there.
To conquer it.
Still have PTSD, do you?
Yeah. Well, maybe. I don't know. Is that a VA claim?
I don't know. Probably,
It was not before I was in the military. So,
yeah, I grew up in the country. So we were all the time outside, and I remember some of the scariest times is just my mom saying, "Hey, the trash is full." And I'm like, "But it's nighttime." The trash can be full at night.
Right. Or go feed the dogs.
We had a burn barrel out behind the back of the barn. And so you had to walk it out there and just being, anytime you're outside and you at night, and you're out in the country, it's pitch dark. And I don't know if you guys remember a movie, Fire in the Sky?
Yes.
So it's about an alien abduction that took place out in the White Mountains in Arizona. And it's one of those in which there's a movie about it. I would recommend if you're into that kind of stuff that you watch the movie. So don't be putting that thing close to me. When I was, I think, a junior in high school, my dad took us hiking and horseback riding up there in the White Mountains. And so I had just watched that movie. And then we went on a night horseback ride. And so I remember a scene from the movie where he gets abducted and we're on this, horseback ride, and it looks just like that scene, like where he gets abducted from. And then I start getting the chills, like, oh man, like if someone's horse disappears, like I'm out of here. Like I'm gonna ride this thing wherever it's going. I don't know where, but I remember being freaked out a little bit about that. But I'll tell you, as a police officer, we searched a lot of vacant buildings and a lot of weird things, and a lot of times people would be like, hey, I saw a guy standing in the window of this house, and then you're like, okay, well, I guess it's my job to go in there and look and see if there's anybody in there.
Regardless of whether you wanted to.
Yeah, and it was like, it's like, or we can both just agree that maybe you didn't see someone, like, and I can drive away.
How many of those searches did you go in there and feel that there was something not quite right?
Oh, that happens quite a bit, and I mean, I can tell you here, when we were looking for houses here, we went in a house, and it's actually not far from where we live now, and I walked in, and we walked in the front door, and I just said, nope. And the guy's like, what? And I'm like, I had a weird feeling here about this house. Somebody's died in this house or something. I'm out. Yeah. It happened. Same thing in Vegas. Is the one in Vegas was a little different. Is we got in this room. I was like, man, there's a weird feeling like someone died. I'm like, do you know the story behind this house? Like why it's in a great neighborhood and it was vacant. And I'm like, why is this house vacant? Like it feels weird in here. It feels like death. And I went to walk out on the back patio, and there was, I don't know where they came from, but all of these pigeons all of a sudden are flying right around my head. And I was the first one out. My wife and the real estate agent were behind me. They closed the door. I couldn't run back in. And so then,
very nice.
So then I'm, running around, swatting the things to my head. But yeah, so there's been a couple times where, you just walk in and you're like, it's just weird. Like I got a weird feeling right now.
I think places can hold energy in them. I mean, some of the houses, when you go in there and like that, you feel creeped out.
Yeah.
So something happened in that house that, just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Just doesn't feel good.
So when I left Sunday from work here, so Sunday it wasn't too late, 6:30, 7 o'clock. And so I knew that we were going to be talking about this. And I was like, you know what? I drove by the old tower, and then I got out and I walked over to it. And I'm like, is this place really, it felt weird. Like it felt weird. And I don't know if it was just because, talking about the stories or what, I can't tell you. And I don't know, but it felt weird. And so
I'd love to investigate a couple places around here. I'd like to go back to 600 and investigate that. I'd love to check out the old tower.
Yeah.
671. My wife worked there for a short time, just down the hallway from Van Post. And she always heard things in the hallway.
What happened, Josh?
It was just yellow. Okay. The light, it was flashing like the, not the lowest green, the next one, and then it went to yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it seems like every time we talk about Grissom, there's things that are happening here is we're getting some, the lights coming on, that meter coming on, those things.
If you think about it, 596 here has seen a lot of activity.
I'd rather you not talk about that's the building I work in every night, and I'm usually here late by myself. Like
this is where I was hired in at. This is where Chief Edgerly was.
So you're gonna go ahead and do it. Go ahead.
It was Major Johnson who hired me in.
Don't tell me is he still with us?
No, he's no longer.
No longer with us. Here we go.
He ended up
I don't need to know. Like I really did.
Brigadier General. Okay. Is it 1 or 2 star?
Yeah.
But anyways, no, there's been a lot of activity. I think in here.
You're talking about this activity. The thing's going crazy about this building. It's like ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. We have the winner. The most haunted building on the space is this one.
I told you something is in this house.
And then it answers.
This building.
All right. This used to be the old command post too.
Command post was here. Command post
downstairs.
This was one big community here when the 45th was here.
And I don't know if you know this, but this is Josh's office. So Josh,
this is not my office
anymore. I'll tell you is, I don't know. I don't know if the camera can see it.
You can probably
see it. It definitely is. Since we've started talking about 596, we're definitely getting some lighting issues. And
you got that.
I've got my camera here. So this is all just happened. That thing set the same spot forever. Never did anything. As soon as we started talking about this building,
and now it's gone.
It seemed to.
And now it's gone.
Come on.
Yeah, so there's this place is active too. I'd love to investigate 596 here, just to see if I could catch anything.
Well, I'll tell you is sometime when I'm working late, I'll definitely be like, hey, I need you out here for
something's going on.
Yeah, they usually call security force. We'll call you. But I just want to say thanks, and man, it's been good talking to you, good getting to know you, and thanks for what you do. Thank you for your service. I appreciate that, and for being a fellow brother in service. And man, if there's anything we can ever do for you, let us know.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me on. This has been interesting. First podcast and all.
Maybe it's something that you can get a little more into. But thank you so much for doing it. So, wicked twist. We learned some more stuff even after the cameras were off of how weird this was. A little mixture of CPO and public affairs. Man, I tell you, I was not expecting that.
Nope, I still have goosebumps.
Yeah. And we hope you were entertained, and we hope that you take some time over this Halloween and spend time with family. Do what makes what refreshes you. We look forward to seeing you guys in November, and happy Halloween.